Well, as I've told you in the past couple videos, these days have been crazy in terms of US politics, and we not only have now the Republican National Convention, which produced this picture of Donald Trump that for some reason was trending on X, and you're about to know the reason why. And meanwhile, we also have the news that Biden has COVID, and it was barely hours after he said that if he had some kind of medical issue, then he would think of withdrawing from the presidential race. All sorts of stuff happening in a matter of hours, including that cryptic tweet on his personal account saying, well, I'm sick. Well, for one, I can smell a joke in here, especially because the English language is so rich and there are so many ways to interpret certain words that, sometimes you better not smell, touch certain topics. But well, it so happens that this cryptic tweet was nothing more than an actual joke. It's strange because I have never found Joe Biden particularly funny. In fact, from some time ago, I have never found him particularly easy to understand. But anyway, he's saying that he's sick of Elon Musk and his rich buddies trying to buy this election. This is a problem with the interns don't know how social media works, because the original tweet had close to 180 million views, while the punchline of the joke had only 20 million. So we are talking about 160 million people who missed the punchline and didn't understand the joke. So, Joe, please fire your social media interns like yesterday. Although, to be fair, maybe this time he took matters and Twitter in his own hands. So, part of all this crazy stuff was this picture of Donald Trump that I stumbled upon on X, and I said, there's something different about this. I already made a video of how Trump's face expression has changed since his assassination attempt. And so far, we just had videos of that first entrance, the first day at the RNC. But it so happens that this photo was taken in those first couple minutes of his first entrance, and I decided to make a test on X. I decided to ask my followers what did they think about this facial expression. The question was very simple. It was very open, but I could never imagine that I was going to receive more than 400 answers to that question. And much to my surprise, being Donald Trump so controversial, at least 95% of those answers were quite polite and neutral, even if I know that I have both Republican and Democratic followers. That pleased me a lot, and I got many answers, such as these ones. Daniel Shensmith, grateful for life. Karina Barbosa, he was definitely moved. Irene Britt USA, it has changed him forever. And Anita, I can tell you from experience, when you're shot, it changed you. It's hard to explain. It's like the solid ground you once walked on suddenly becomes uneven forever. You look at everything with a completely different view. Again, these are very good examples of the kind of answers I got. But then the questions still remain. What does this picture have that is so special? Because we know that this is not Trump's usual facial expression. And to prove that point, I'm going to go back in time just barely 2 months ago to this photo at his criminal trial at Manhattan Criminal Court on May 30 in New York City. Of course, the circumstances were vastly different. He was really angry about the process, and we have seen his angry face many times. And Trump is a man that usually doesn't like to be read that easily. He tries to keep a neutral face expression, but it's obvious that in these circumstances, and we're talking about barely less than 2 months ago, he was visibly upset and angry. We can see that. You see that furrowing of his brows? You see the pressed lips? You see that he's hunching a bit over the desk? It was not his best moment, that's for sure. But we go forward 2 weeks to June 14th, and we can see that here's a very similar, not only expression, but posture, the exact same posture that we are analyzing. You remember that this is the picture that we are analyzing, and even the fingers are in the exact same position. So it's something like he just does second nature, automatically. And he's giving that neutral and serene expression that I'm in command, everything is going to be okay. But in this picture of June 14th, there's still that struggle. There's still that we are not there yet. There's still that tension. And I can't imagine how stressful were those days for him. Moving forward 2 more weeks, and this was on June 27 at the presidential debate. I also have an analysis on the presidential debate, and the most relevant thing about Trump's body language there is that he tried to be as measured as possible. You know that he was playing with these very strict rules. He couldn't use the full extent of his usual body language and expression, and he had to be very succinct in his statements and arguments. All in all, he had this seriousness. Again, part of the circumstances of being at a debate. You need to project that image of power. So, why are we reviewing these 3 pictures first? Because we need to make sense of the progression that Donald Trump has had in less than 2 months. It has been crazy, from the criminal trial to being on campaign to the presidential debate. He has had that signature look that, well, ranged from more or less angry to serious and projecting power. So that's why this picture became viral on X. That's why everybody was talking about this. The most important feature of this facial expression is how relaxed his face looks. I mean, when you tense your inner eyebrows for so long, you begin to have these vertical lines perpetually. I have those vertical lines because when I begin to think, and I'm thinking a lot all the time, I do this. So it's normal that my physiognomy is going to change and going to adapt to that constant thinking, constant furrowing of my brows. And that's what we are looking at here. But at the same time, you see that there's no anger in his expression at all. I would say that there's this huge amount of being moved. I would say that it's even a compassionate look, maybe hopeful about the future. And something that you don't see very often in Donald Trump's facial expression is a neutral mouth with just a hint of a smile. That is one of the reasons this picture caught so much attention. Because it was so different from what we are used to when looking at Donald Trump. But now it's your turn, because I know that regardless if you have seen many pictures of Trump or you have seen few pictures of him, you can give also your opinion about what you see in this facial expression, and make sure to write it down in the comments. Don't forget to download my 100 body language tips in the description of this video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss.